this computer. Yay. All right. Cool. Thanks, everybody, for coming to the May Workflow Community Meeting. There isn't that much to talk about, so this shouldn't take too long, but if anybody's willing to volunteer why they're here or talk about how they're using workflow or something like that at the end of the meeting, that'd be awesome. It's just a good idea. And again, feel free to interrupt me basically at any point. This is your meeting. I'm just going to talk about what's in the 2.14 release, point out some bugaboos we ran into, and then just open up for questions is all I've got today. So yeah, so we finished up this month's release, Workflow 2.14. There's not a ton of groundbreaking stuff in it. There's a lot of good bug fixes. Unfortunately, I mean, we're literally done with it, but we're not able to publish the bits right now because we're working out some CI issues. We'll get it fixed today and get the chart published, which is really the only thing remaining at this point. I don't know if the details probably aren't that interesting, but I'm sure you're all aware that Deis was acquired by Microsoft. We've moved some of our testing infrastructure over to Azure, and then we actually just tried to rationalize some Azure storage accounts just now, which blew up something we were sending to CI. Long story short, we'll have it fixed soon. Sorry about that, but the release will be out today or tomorrow morning at the absolute worst. As far as what's in the release overall, I can provide you a link to the changelog. It's in progress. We haven't quite merged it yet because of what I was just talking about. But that's what's in there. Let's see. Some of the highlights are Jonathan Chauncey's doing a lot of refactoring on the chart pieces to try and get to the point where we're actually consuming the standard upstream Helm charts for Grafana, Telegraph, and some of that's in progress. Some of that landed this month. You won't really notice the details, just things have been updated. Other changes are we had a problem running on CNI enabled Kubernetes clusters that luckily is fixed now. We did a bunch of restructuring in terms of how CI works. Again, this is kind of inside baseball stuff, but it makes life a lot easier for us because now we're only testing on Jenkins. We don't have to also watch Travis CI. Sorry, I'm actually just looking at the release notes here. Basically just bug fixes this time around, which is great, need to happen. Oh, and we also got the controller to a Django LTS release, which is nice because then we can stop being hyper about upgrading packages all the time. Yeah, that's about it. So again, it's a bug fix release. We lost a little bit of energy in transitioning over to Microsoft, but we're sort of, there's a lot of clerical things to take care of, but we're actually past that, and so the next release should be much meatier than this one. I was going to point out, and if you're actually installing workflow, you're probably aware of this, but just so you know, Kubernetes 1.6.0 and 1.6.1 unfortunately have a fairly fundamental bug, just like 1.3.0, 1.3.1, 1.3.2 did for us, that is essentially going to prevent us from deploying apps because of a secret mounting issue. So if you're installing, please use Kubernetes 1.6.2 if you can get to that. Otherwise, anything in 1.5 series is known to work really well. Or 1.4. And then, like I was hoping to make next right here. Sorry. The next release should have more substantial stuff in it. We're going to try and finish out the work we started on the native ingress options. We're going to have the upstream Helm charts for most of the monitoring stuff will be incorporated. That's going to be a painful upgrade from our point of view. You won't notice it because we're handling all the Helm hooks. But and then I was actually talking to Remus just a minute ago. I don't know how it may not land for this release, but he had some really good ideas about making Minio support a little more robust, or maybe doing external Minio. Those are some of the things we hope to happen in the next release, but really it's up to you guys, obviously, what gets in there, because community contributions are what really drives this. So if you have any big ideas that you really think need to be in the next release, bring them up now, or else shoot us a PR or an issue soon so we can do our planning for next month's release. Anyway, with that, I am pretty much out of talking. Seth or Vaughn, you guys have anything to add? No? Does anybody have any questions about what's going on with workflow in general, or what's in this release?
I did have some more color to add to our new Jenkins setup. So with this move to being a part of Microsoft, the good news is we no longer have to pay for eternal infrastructure. So that's a win. And I think Vaughn is the kind of person that won't claim responsibility or take compliments out in public, but he's going to get one right now. He almost single-handedly moved our whole legacy-filled Jenkins infrastructure to running completely on top of Kubernetes. So the Jenkins master and all of the nodes are running inside of the Kubernetes cluster. So we're actually launching builds inside of containers. This is, at least personally, the dream for running build CI systems, where we can run Linux hosts, potentially some Windows hosts, and Mac. We have one Mac node doing some Mac build and check stuff. So it's a lot easier to maintain from my view. I'm sure Vaughn agrees once he got past all the massive push that it took to get to this point. But I think all that got done within a week or two. So it was a super fast migration. So props to that effort. Great work, Vaughn.
Yeah, totally. And we had some stretch goals in there too. Like we were thinking initially, we'll just move Jenkins over. We'll continue using our old slaves, but no, everything's dynamic. We're all in on a better setup. It's really nice. That also reminds me of some work going on that's related to workflow. Chauncey's here, but basically we're starting to. You might know if you poke behind the scenes at our CI system, we're still testing everything on GKE. We'd obviously like to be testing programmatically on Azure as well. So we're going to try and add support for the leasing component that we use, this thing called Kate's Claimer, to start provisioning on Azure as well. And then we'll be testing at least on 2 clouds. AWS is the next frontier. There's some other hurdles there, but I mean, we do test manually on AWS. It's just the nightly builds are only on GKE at this point.
There's a question in chat that I'll field. So the question is, are you going to be focusing on efforts on Azure? I'm assuming specifically on Azure due to Deis being under Microsoft. So we, as a company, Deis, have been focused on making Kubernetes easier to use. So the idea is wherever Kubernetes wins, we win if we build on top of that abstraction. So yes, we will be adding some niceties where Azure makes sense, but we also want to make sure that workflow runs on top of Kubernetes everywhere, because if it doesn't, then we kind of lost the benefit of Kubernetes in general. So we're obviously Microsoft employees, so our paychecks go to, or our paychecks come from Azure, so to speak. But we want to make sure Kubernetes is successful, and that's part of the reason for this acquisition is our experience and knowledge and talent within the Kubernetes space.
Yeah, in practical terms.
For example, I don't know C#. No one knows C# here, so
I know C#.
So that poses a kind of a blocker to going full on Azure.
In practical terms, what it's really meant is we were testing on Azure first instead of last now, which is a good thing. And like Seth said, obviously, if there's an opportunity to make something work much better on Kubernetes and Azure, we're going to jump on that. But we don't intend to advantage any cloud over another. We know why we're here. This is a pure open source product, and Microsoft wants it to continue that way, as far as I can tell. So that's great. Any involvement with Eclipse Che? I don't know who or what that is. Anyone? What is that, Phil? Oh.
Eclipse Che is like the new version of Eclipse that's coming out. It's going to be web-based, and it can be run in a container. So you could do development of your app in a container and build in a container without having to put anything on your laptop.
So like all of OpenShift is a container that you can develop in?
Yeah.
That's pretty rad. Well, obviously, I guess I played my hand, and our answer is no right now.
Okay.
But we should check that out. That sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. I don't know how it works out in reality.
Okay. Totally.
Because it's still in development, but it has releases out there. You could actually get into a sandbox on the internet and play with it. So it's out there to play with. I just haven't used it for anything serious yet.
Wow, that looks awesome. We'll definitely check it out because, as Seth said, this is our overall mission. Let's make Kubernetes stupid easy to use. So that looks like something we should copy if possible. Cool. Any other questions or comments?
Will Microsoft at some point see Deis as a competitor because it works on other cloud providers, and maybe put a little embrace and extend kind of move on there? So it does.
I don't think so. I mean, as far as we can tell, Microsoft really wanted to buy Deis to further their involvement in Kubernetes, but also their open source story in general. And they're pretty aware that doing something like that would be kind of a poison pill for whatever community exists around.
Yes. Well, the community, yeah, it fractured the community for sure.
I think that's really unlikely. And also, I think Microsoft's perspective is more, we sell cloud volume. And so we're kind of opinionated, or at least our group is. We think Kubernetes is the way to go, but really we're gonna support anything: raw Docker containers, DCOS, whatever. So I don't know that Deis would ever be seen as a competitor just because we're advantaging other clouds as well.
Okay, that's important.
This is just me talking. Someone might come in and overrule me, but as far as we,
when the
direction we've gotten,
the VPs might be the C floor of the building might have a different view.
Not so far, but you never know. Yeah.
You can really see it in their offerings like VS Code and things like that, right? That they're starting in Mono and that kind of stuff. So you're starting to really see them embrace the Linux and the OS X side of the coin, and realize that just running, just their Windows offering isn't getting it any further, getting them any further down the line. So I really believe that they're trying to kind of mend that relationship with developers who traditionally run Linux and OS X and then like the open source stack. So this is a really great move for them.
For us is what you mean. It's only been a week and a half. We're still saying them.
Yes, us.
First class citizen. Well,
did you mention the doc changes for the stuff that I put out?
No, actually, do you want to go over that real quick?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that we've had a lot of questions and some confusion sometimes around specific things that are in like our Fluent D installation, our Grafana installation, and so I went through the last couple of weeks and tried to improve the documentation around those, specifically around how we configure the charts or how you should configure these charts as you do the installation or your upgrade. If you find anything that's missing or you want to add anything to it, please hit me up. That's definitely something we want to keep improving on. They kept getting. I think they were drifting a little bit from what we were doing because the way we manage our documentation. So if you see any holes, please let me know. But we've tried to make those better over the last couple of weeks.
That's a good point. I'm just answering in chat. Maxime gave us that awesome patch to get CNI working, but it's not really full integration. You're right. I don't know. I think if we went whole hog with a native ingress approach, that would be a friendlier environment. That would work with CNI setups, right? It's just not the default still. And then you don't have router at all. So maybe that is a more compatible way to go.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, ingress is great. We can use ingress resources for routing, but native Deis ingress, experimental ingress router, if I remember correctly, is not so great for now. So I assume if the best approach here is to make native experimental ingress better, we should start with some documentation which is lax for now. There is no any complete document about how to use native ingress right out of the box. And the second point is RBAC in Kubernetes that is totally not supported for now. If you look into community channel, for today I spent a couple of hours to explain for some people how to run Dais in Kubernetes 1.6 with RBAC enabled. So yes, I have 2 points, CNI and RBAC. For about RBAC, I can share some, sorry for my English. I have 2 approaches. I have one massive cluster role binding for which enable all Dais service accounts as cluster admin. It works, but not so pretty, as you can understand. And the second approach is to split this role binding to many pieces, 2 or 4 pieces per service account. And if it's preferable and convenient, I can make a pull request to workflow with those roles and role bindings.
We would love that. That would be awesome if you could do that. That was really our only goal before looking at RBAC, is just to since it wasn't fully ready and there still really isn't any obvious way, from my point of view, to map what we do with users to roles in RBAC. The initial goal was just to, what you're talking about, try and document how you can get it working when you've already got RBAC set up, even if that means all the users involved have to essentially have full privileges. At least we document it somewhere, and then we could start working on a way to integrate better. So yeah, if you have either of those flavors working and want to document it, that would be amazing. We could certainly take it and make a blog post out of it, or just put it in the regular docs. As far as CNI and ingress, I mean, obviously we do have some documentation on native ingress, but we really just got it started and then kind of dropped the ball this month because of all the work, all the transition work. But we want to finish it out. It looks like a lot of people have actually used it. Obviously, you have. So just improving the documentation, making it more complete is part of that. There's a couple bugs we've identified that we know we need to fix. But if you've tried it out, Maxime, and anyone else, and actually run into issues just using it beyond the documentation, please let us know, because we're intending to clean that all up and fix it for this next release.
Okay, thank you. The last point, primary issue with RBAC is it's a default for now. Every newcomer which installs Kubernetes cluster with kubeadm or with scopes or with GKE or something else will have RBAC by default. And Deis out of the box didn't work with RBAC, and this is the main point for now, I think. Okay, I will try to split my huge role binding to pieces, and we'll show you in a couple of days. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you so much. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss anything here. Cool. Any other comments, questions? Does anybody want to share a story about how they're using workflow currently or trying to? Any plans to have data spin up internal ELV as opposed to external? Not something we've thought about really. I guess our direction has been either, the chart we already have, or else hopefully supporting native ingress, which kind of bypasses that. So I'm just watching the chat. Are we going to get more headcount on the team? I don't know. Seth probably doesn't actually know either. Right now, we're all kind of chugging along, doing the same things we've been doing with relatively the same horsepower. I don't know. Honestly, taking a step back and thinking about it, we're really hoping that we can find some of you guys who have enough time to join us and be maintainers of the project in the long term. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't also add some more headcount, but I think long term we'd really like to see this be a community-driven project and maintained project as well. What's the relationship between Deis Monitor and Kubernetes Monitor? Well, they're kind of different stacks. That Chauncey, you want to answer that one?
Sure. So when we built the Deis monitoring stack, we were trying to build something that wasn't necessarily very opinionated. We just needed something that could ship data, monitoring data, and analytical data anywhere. And at the time, Heapster didn't really have a lot of back-end syncs. So you could send stuff to Prometheus, you could send stuff to Influx, but it didn't support other more main. There wasn't other vendors that you could support. So we chose like Telegraph, for instance, because it has a large number of outputs. So for instance, you could send data to AMQP or Kafka, Vibrato, so on and so forth. So we wanted to build something that was easy to extend upon and let, if somebody had their already existing Influx system, we could just ship the data to that and it would just continue to work. So it's the Kubernetes monitor, I sit in the SIG instrumentation channel a lot. They're very heavily opinionated on Prometheus, and you get a lot of questions in there about their Prometheus setups. So I've kind of stayed away from like exerting any opinion on SIG instrumentation for the most part, particularly because this Prometheus is part of CNCF. So for now, the Deis monitoring stack is going to remain a very open-ended kind of you can use it as it is and get data, push data to wherever you need it to be. And we kind of give you some graphs and things like that to kind of help you along and give you obviously an influx setup. But that being said, I would love to hear what other people's opinions are on the future and kind of where people would like to see the monitoring stack go. We kind of built it and it worked really well, and then we've kind of taken a step back and not and not rock the boat too much with it. So I have some ideas of some things I would like to add to it. I would love to bring Capacitor into the stack because they have auto scaling capabilities now. So then you could do pod auto scaling based on custom metrics, which I think would be pretty sweet for most people. But I just haven't had the opportunity to get back around to that. So if anybody's got any ideas, I would love to just see an issue on it. We can talk about it more.
Cool. All right. Seems like we've spun out most of our questions, but Prometheus metric support.
Yeah, so Telegraph actually can scrape Prometheus metrics endpoints, and you just provide it with the URL of that endpoint data or that endpoint, and it will scrape the data, and then it can. The great thing is Telegraph can then turn the Prometheus metric into any other type of output metric. So you can take the Prometheus data and send it to Influx, and it will do the right thing. So so Telegraph can already do that for us, and as a matter of fact, that was actually how our Telegraph instance originally got Kubernetes metrics, as we pulled the Prometheus endpoints. But we now go under the covers and go straight to the kubelet and get the data directly from the kubelet for container metrics.
All right. Any other questions? All right. I guess we can call it good for May. But obviously you can ask us questions anytime in the community channel. Sorry, we've been a little spotty in there this week. We've actually been doing training and back and forth and stuff, but I think things have settled down, so we will be more attentive to the community channel. All right, cool. See everybody in June. Thanks.